President Barack Obama has just completed a visit to Australia, the heart of which was an agreement that will see a US military presence in that country for the first time in decades. The story here really is the United States and its relationship with China, and I'm going to explore the strategic calculus at work here, both from Washington and Beijing's point of view, with my colleague Tom Wales. Tom, set out, if you would, just briefly the US side of things. What's going on here in this apparent strategic reorientation?
Well, Graham, what's going on is a shift in the president's strategic calculus vis-a-vis China. This is a shift that has been actually in the works for quite a while. The president started out very sort of convinced that he could work closely with China to achieve a sort of constructive economic regime for both parties, and very much embraced the idea, the Chinese idea, the sort of peaceful rise. Right. But over the years, he's grown increasingly distrustful of Beijing's motives. And I think what we see now is the sort of final iteration of that. The sort of teeth are out. They're more obviously apparent. The U.S. military presence in Darwin, Australia, will be the first significant presence since the Second World War. It's one that can be increased quite rapidly, and it's of a piece with what we've seen elsewhere in the region, and with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's rhetoric vis-a-vis Chinese territorial disputes with its neighbors in the South China Sea. The other aspect of the strategic shift is the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, the TPP. In which has been in the works for actually a very long time, but had never had Japan as part of the group of nations negotiating to join what could be the largest trade bloc in the world.
Excluding
Japan,
China.
Yeah, exactly, excluding China. And the Japanese joined TPP negotiations officially in Hawaii last weekend. That means, I think, eventually, we don't mean in a year or two, but really in maybe a decade, this could actually come to pass, and it's viewed as a threat by China, as well it should be, given that most of the countries present in the TPP don't have particularly brilliant relations with China.
And the Chinese see this, I'm sure, as a part of a picture of strategic deterioration as far as their environment is concerned, because the good times for them, I think, are over, with the US focus on the Middle East and the Afghanistan now winding down. The Chinese have got to contend with this presence, this refocusing, for a long period of time, and it coincides rather difficultly with developments at home, leadership transition, economy slowing down. So we've got a fairly sort of combustible series of things unfolding now. The United States is well aware of this risk. I hope they play their hand in Asia Pacific on the diplomatic and strategic front with some skill. Otherwise, the risk of conflict and tension is quite significant.
I think it is. I mean, this is a relationship that doesn't look like it has particularly brilliant days ahead. I mean, on the part of the United States, what it could do more than anything in order to facilitate a more constructive engagement with China is to focus probably a bit less on the currency, which is going its direction anyway, and probably a bit more on encouraging Chinese FDI into the United States, which has been weak, partly because the United States, perhaps for good reasons, doesn't allow the Chinese to invest in certain high-tech industries. For less good reasons, it's blocked acquisitions of American energy companies, which really have no significance in terms of the strategic environment. For its part, the United States and U.S. companies seem to be investing less in China. I mean, the huge outsourcing wave of the last decade.
That's passed as well, I think.
It seems to be slowing down, and that has to do with increased U.S. labor competitiveness, even vis-a-vis China. I mean, we've pointed out for a couple of years now that with the Chinese inflation rate very high over an extended period of time, and the ongoing wage squeeze and productivity increases in the United States, what you're having is actually a significant fall in the Chinese wage advantage. And this is benefiting U.S. trade partners like Mexico much more quickly, but is also benefiting the United States, because if you're a U.S. company thinking of investing abroad and you start to think about the risk, the risk weight that's associated with that capital expenditure, and then you think, well, actually, I could employ workers at a relatively competitive rate in the United States and not have to deal with transportation costs and these other elements of risk, then that starts to look somewhat better, the U.S., that is, as a producing market. So this sort of shift that you identified from a kind of relatively easy period of rapid growth for China to a relatively more difficult period, both strategically and in economic terms, I think may be already here.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom, and thank you for watching this video briefing. A turning point is at hand in US-China relations, one where the nature of the relationship is changing on commercial as well as strategic fronts. Do watch out for our continued analysis of this and other matters. Thanks very much.